take the very things that we do every day in life for granted until something happens in a blink of an eye. Hello, I'm Tom Russo, and this is In a Blink of an Eye, where we discuss stories from ordinary people whose lives are changed in an instant and how they overcome through faith, courage, and determination. Join me on this podcast for uplifting stories of how people face various challenges and learn to not only survive, but to thrive. Now today, we are joined by the magic of phone. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the video to work, but my friend Kevin Rutledge. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. It's an honor to be with you.
Well, Kevin, I'm so excited to hear your story and to have it shared with our fans. But I want to kind of start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you were born, where you grew up, your hobbies, your interests, things of that nature.
Well, I'm a native Texan and grew up in the Texas Panhandle, place that I always say, when it snowed in New Mexico and Colorado, what didn't stick to the mountains would dump in the Panhandle. We got a ton of snow up that way. Grew up in a single family household. My mom was just an absolute pillar of strength. And so I guess where I am in my life, I owe a lot to her and whatever things she instilled with me with manners and moral things like that. So, God rest her soul, she's been gone for a couple of decades, but she was actually my hero, if you want to say, in my life.
Kind of an inspiration.
Very much so. Very much so. From there, lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. That's where I met my wife of now 40 years, 40.
Congratulations! You even have Cindy and I beat. We're only at 37.
Well, like I say, you'll catch up, but I don't think you can. God willing, I guess. But two daughters, they're both born in Dallas. And, I had the pleasure of having a dream job, I guess you would say. I got to work for my childhood favorite team, and still is, of course, the Dallas Cowboys.
I've told you before, they have therapy groups for that.
Yeah, says a Texan fan, no doubt. So from there that led into I worked in sales with them, corporate sales, and that opened up the door into getting into banking. Ironically, a industry that my mom was in as a teller for many, 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 many years. And of course, that's how you and I met.
And ironically, how you and I met, yes, and in Arizona of all places.
Arizona of all places, and that's what happened. I got relocated there to start some de novo branches for Compass Bank out in that market. And when we always talked about if we retired, we'd probably come back to Texas. And we did. The only problem with that is that we left our kids in Arizona. They were kids when we moved there in 2000, and then they're young adults with their own lives, and so unfortunately we moved away from our future grandkids. Now we have two now.
You have two grandkids. We have two as well. So I understand that.
Young grade, but the beauty of being semi-retired, I guess now, is that we can go back and forth, anytime that we want to. My wife's retired and from the medical industry, and so we have that autonomy, freedom.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you're and my life have a lot in common, because I was a long-term banker. My wife's a medical professional. We have two kids. We have two grandkids. They live far away. You love sports. You're passionate about sports. I'm certainly passionate about sports. I did some sports broadcasting, owned a sports memorabilia store, and wrote a book about baseball. So we've had a lot of things that crossed over in our lives, and it's one of the reasons why you've always been a good friend of mine. But I know recently, I say recently, it's been a few years. And maybe even going back even further in your life, you had a couple of really tragic events that truly did happen in a blink of an eye. Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, the most recent would have been 3 years ago, this past March. That's when a tornado came through Round Rock. Who knew? that we were in the new tornado alley. That tornado started around I-45 and I-35, and it went. I remember this from the reports. 31.31 miles had a path.
Wow.
And the most speed it was about 148 miles per hour, and that happened to be in our backyard down there. We were behind a creek. So we got hit pretty hard. I'll tell you, I think this is a God thing, I believe, is that we had tornado warnings throughout the day that day. Again, growing up in the Texas Panhandle, tornado warning every single day.
No, you have a tornado warning. It's always on the bottom of the TV screen.
Always.
I remember it well. Having graduated from Texas Tech and living in Lubbock for quite a while. So
exactly. They just there's if the wind doesn't blow out there, I say it's a good day, and that's probably about 3 days out of the year, maybe. Another one of the reasons I moved out of the Panhandle pretty quickly after graduating. But I digress. Anyway. That day, my wife was watching the news, and she happened to be watching at that time. And I was back in my office, which is the front of the house, and she said, "Hey, she goes, they said the tornado just touched down in Round Rock." Got my attention. I got up and I, walked out there, and then I walked to our back area, which again, the back area or backyard and everything is where that creek is. And I kind of looked down the creek to the right. And I just see this stuff swirling in the air. There's no particular dark matter or anything like that. I just see trash swirling in the air. I asked Lauren, my wife, I said, "Come here and look at this real quick." And no sooner did she get to that back door than I started seeing trees fold over, the fence came down. So I just grabbed her and we ran into, about a catty corner of where we were into a bathroom and got in there. And again, in a blink of an eye, Tom, that thing was gone. Probably 30, 35 seconds. I wasn't ever scared. I was kind of amazed because I was sticking my head out like guys do, right? We don't think about our safety and security. My wife's safe behind me, but I got to see what's going on. I stick my head out and I'm looking through the bathroom window and I see, I say, there goes the fence. We had a 16 by 20 structure in the back that we called the she shed. It was on 9 concrete pillar beams. And it took that house off and blew it away. And so the whole end of our back house, again, had come off. And I would say a good 80% of the house was destroyed. And we were safe and sound, not a scratch on us again.
And thank God for that. And in that 35, 40 seconds, you say you weren't scared, which I kudos to you for that, because I would have been frightened to death. But there had to have been some moments in there where your very faith is shattered a little bit, or it's shaken.
Can be. I for some reason, I felt like I was just kind of in awe of what I was seeing and how quickly, it happened, and the amount of destruction that I was just seeing in just my general surroundings. Our little cul-de-sac area actually made the front page of the Austin Statesman. They put a drone up in the air and took a picture of our area, so you could see the destruction. Everybody in the cul-de-sac had some type of destruction, but just 2 of the neighbors, me and my next door neighbor, were the only ones that were displaced for a while. But throughout the process, I just feel like, God kept bringing things into our life, resources that we didn't know we had, including the restoration people that came. And those first 48, 72 hours, there's a lot going on, but there's no manual to how you handle it, and you just don't know what's the priority.
Was it a time of despair is a strong word, but of fear, struggle, pain, anguish, what you've lost, how are you going to recover? Why us? I find that a lot of the people that I visit with, that's one of the first emotions that they have is why me? Why us? Why did this happen? Why did God choose this to happen to us? Did you go through some of those gyrations?
I did, but it was much later. It was much later. Initially, I think there was just that adrenaline was going. There's so much going on. You know, you had your ambulance chasers that were throughout the neighborhood that you had to shoo away. That were just nuisances. They were really nuisances. But you had good neighbors, people that were from other parts of our little community that came around to chainsaws, things like that. Just took care of immediate needs. So you see that initial thing with the community and people coming out and helping one another. You know, white, black, brown. Nobody really knew each other, but you're still helping each other. And to me, that's always something that you can lean back on. It kind of strengthens that faith you have in humanity, really. So.
Well, and those are strong binds, and I think in times of need we find that people do tend to come together. I remember after Hurricane Harvey, my wife and I were helping others that were flooded. We were luckily not flooded, but we were helping others that were flooded in the area, and we actually helped the National Guard out a little bit when they were doing some searches. And so I understand what you mean. It's like we're all in this together, kind of a feeling, right?
Absolutely.
And so from that, tell me a little bit about, and then we're going to go back in your memory to another struggle that you had, but regarding this one, tell me a little bit about the rebuilding process and what that was like, and how you've come kind of full circle. You say you're semi-retired now. It sounds like there was some other God interventions with some of those things and what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. I'd like to share just a quick, somewhat sidebar on that initial things that happen where you can just see God's hand is on your life and what's going on with you. We were again displaced immediately, obviously. And,
right.
That first night, and we had pets, and that first night was not a good night because it just wasn't a good night. But we ended up being safe. But after that, it's kind of like, okay, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? And because we can't live here, had a friend of mine reach out to me and said that it's only a temporary situation, but said they think that there is this little B&B with this nonprofit organization. They actually kind of rent it out to earn extra money that would be available to us. We checked it out. It's called Simple Sparrow. It's a nonprofit. It teaches kids maybe with certain disadvantages that kind of have gone through the system and been lost through the system like that. It kind of teaches them a trade in the farming industry, but also just does it faith-based. And again, we didn't know these people. They didn't know us. They welcomed us in, didn't ask us for a dime, said our pets were welcomed as well, and as for as long as that we needed it. And again, to happen within 48 hours of the tornado, and just to know that it's a temporary solution, but at least your immediate need of housing and shelter has been taken care of. And the cool part about that too is that my wife grew up on a farm. This gave her some peace and comfort at a time where her faith was probably pretty shaken at that time. Right. And but this brought her back to her childhood of growing up and having animals on the farm and what their story behind. And my wife is actually still involved with that organization to this day. And so something
else great came out of this tragedy. Something else great came.
Absolutely. You always see God. You might not see it initially, but somewhere down the line, He'll show Himself to you.
I agree totally, yeah. And that's quite honestly why I started this podcast, because I felt God called me to share that all is not lost when something happens, and God is there, and there's a purpose, and we're moving forward.
Amen, bro. Well, the process, we probably learned a lot more about insurance companies and construction than we ever really cared to in a lifetime. And that the putting the house back together and dealing with adjusters and subcontractors trampling through for months and months and months, that wasn't any fun. It tested our faith for sure from time to time. not that they didn't do a good job, but it's just, it's not. You can see when shortcuts are being done, and you can see when insurance is maybe pressing you on an area they shouldn't be pressing you on, and so, but all in all, it was an okay experience putting it all back together again. We've been back in for a couple of years now, and we've learned that I'm a big gardener, and most of my stuff I thought was destroyed back there, and I neglected it that whole summer we were out of the house for that 9 month period. And it was just God's resources, whatever sun and water He wanted to provide is all they got. And the majority of my vegetation came back. Just shows you how resilient
Well, that's
plants are and how
fantastic.
people are.
That's good for me to know because I love gardening, and we have about an acre of property here where we have a little orchard and a little garden. And since my eye problem and I'm real sensitive to sunlight, I haven't been able to get out and work in the yard like I normally do during the summers. And our garden has gone crazy with weeds, and some of our fruit trees have not blossomed like they should. But I'm hopeful that once I get to a point where I can get back out there, that I too can salvage some of that, and it's in God's favor that they've been taken care of.
That's good to hear, Tom. I think you're going to be surprised.
I hope so.
Pleasantly surprised.
You shared with me two other things that I want to touch on. One, you said that you recently started, or at some point here started, kind of an accounting job. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Well, again, I'm as I said, a retired banker. When we left Arizona, came back to Texas, I was out of banking at that point in time, and again, our love of sports, I always come back to it. Like I say, I had the pleasure of working for the Cowboys, and I just wanted to see if I can't get something involved in sports, get my foot in the door again there. Round Rock Express was in my neck of the woods. That's the Nolan Ryan's and his family, their team and organization. AAA affiliate of the Texas Rangers. Used to be Astros, but now the Rangers.
Yeah, and we're very sad about that. Yes.
Anyway,
you DFW people, I tell you, I don't
know. we never let it rest, do we? Yeah, well, you guys got a few extra championships on us, so we got some catching up to do.
Not in football, we don't.
No. But anyway, I got my foot in the door just working on their event staff as an usher, but I made myself known as somebody that had the right skill set and temperament, I think, for them, and I'd be interested in doing anything I could leading into a possible full-time job. And before it's all said and done with, I actually was their operations manager for the entire event staff. That at one point in time, I probably had about 170 employees, ranging from 16 to, I think my oldest was 81 years old.
Yeah, I remember coming out and visiting you one summer while you
Yes,
were
sir.
while you were working out there. Yeah,
you did. I hope I treated you good.
Oh, absolutely.
I hope I didn't have the big head and
No, they were still an Astros affiliate then too.
Oh yeah, you're probably right. But that ended after COVID. You remember when COVID rolled around, it obviously affected sports organizations as well, and they completely canceled minor league baseball that year. So most everybody was kind of laid off at that point in time, and again, I'm already semi-retired, so it's okay. I enjoyed what I did with them. I completely understood, and thought, well, we'll see what next opportunity may come out. And that opportunity was not too long after that. I'm probably about 2 or 3 months. I'm in my front yard, which I'm hardly ever in the front yard because my backyard's my oasis.
Your kingdom.
My kingdom, yes. My front yard. I'm actually out there, pulling weeds. The old boy that owns this small pool company that did some work for me on my pool was making a chemical delivery to my next door neighbor. And I was thinking, well, I know he's got some help. He's the owner of the company. So I just asked him. We got to talking. I asked him, I said, I said, well, yeah, I'm making deliveries. I said, you looking for some help or something like that? And he goes, you know what I really need? He goes, I just lost my accountant. He goes, I really need somebody to do the books. And I said, well, you may not know this about me, but
Look no further.
yeah, I said, but I work for the Express, and maybe you don't know my background, but my background's in banking. I said, I think I could do the job that you're looking for, and of course, he liked the camaraderie and the how personable I was anyway. He thought that could really mesh well with not only doing
Well, that's
the
certainly a
accounting work
God
of it,
thing.
but doing some
Yeah.
administrative type of work and kind of being his voice, something like that. So that was 4 years ago when that happened. I say it was just a few months after I lost my job with Express after COVID, and yeah, I want to officially retire, Tom. I want it to be like 100% official.
I
But
understand.
it's just too dang easy of a job, and I get free chemicals. I get discounts on pool equipment. Owning a pool is expensive, like owning a boat. It's
You
expensive.
know what's interesting about what you're saying there, Kev, is I feel the same way. I had a 32-year banking career and motivational speaking and radio, and I retired from that, got bored, went and became a teacher, spent 5 years as a teacher, and then this eye thing happened, and I was forced to retire from teaching. And so now I'm kind of searching out that next nugget because I'm bored's not the right word, but seeking something else, seeking
Yes, sir.
some satisfaction, and I kind of felt like God called me to do this, and so I'm trying to get this off the ground and get this going with great stories like yours and other people. So that's really cool. Now you had mentioned something off camera to me that I didn't know about you. You said when you were younger that you were involved in a flood that was very dangerous. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. It was Memorial Day, 1978, up in the Texas Panhandle where I grew up. Again, I graduated high school in '77. I
You say in the
actually,
Panhandle. Where exactly in the Panhandle? I'm curious.
I'd say, I was born in Pampa,
Pampa,
which
the
is
Harvesters.
close. Harvesters, exactly. Green and gold, yeah. But I moved to Canyon, which is outside of Amarillo, um, when I was in seventh grade. So I went to junior high and high school, and then West Texas State,
Okay,
which
okay.
is now an A&M affiliated. So we don't talk about that, Tom.
Oh, we got to talk about that. Whoop! I live in College Station now.
I know you do. I know you do. I see those shirts with that burgundy on you that you wear from time to time. So I got to be careful because I married a Longhorn gal here, so I got to be careful.
Well,
Now,
my wife graduated from UT too, but she's all ag all the way.
are
The
you?
only reason she went to UT was to go to pharmacy school. So,
I'm going to ask her when I see her to blink your eyes if you're okay.
so tell me about the
But
flood.
yeah, the flood. So yeah, I actually had my car packed. I was actually going to San Angelo the next day. I was going to try to walk on at Angelo State, play baseball because they got a great baseball program down there to this
Yeah.
day, and it's been great for decades. And I just wanted out of the Texas Panhandle. You know how when you're young and just like I
You
gotta
want
spread
something
my
different than what
wings.
you have.
Exactly. But God had different plans because I stuck around an extra day because I was watched the 1978 class graduate high school. I had some friends there, and went to go to Amarillo to visit my brother. And when I was coming back to Canyon, all routes, it was raining all day long. It rained, and at night all the routes were just kind of blocked. I mean, we couldn't get into Canyon, couldn't get into town at
Like
all.
I-27 there, right?
I-27
Yeah.
was I-40. Yeah, I-40 doesn't really run so east and west. I'm trying to think the other one, but
Yeah,
there was some farm.
I-27, I think it is.
Yeah, I-27 is the one north and south of yeah.
Yeah.
So it was blocked off, and it ended up, I had turned around and went to go get on some farm roads that I knew about, but you could see how far the water. You could see the mud levels probably a good 10, 12 feet up on these storage buildings that were way off the highway, and there's a few creeks around there, but there was really no big, no rivers or lakes or anything. So that was amazing to see that afterwards. Well, I came in from the road that I can't remember the name of the farm road, but it leads you out if you want to go out to Paladero Canyon. So I
Right.
kind of came in from the east of town, and I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time in my car. I was close to a bridge. The creek was rushing way over it. I was in a small car, so unfortunately, like I say, the water just kind of picked me up. It took me off the roadway. I went over the kind of the guardrail. I opened my window, got on top of my car, but I always tell people, I said, I didn't yell for help because it's like, man, who's going to help me?
There's nobody there.
Nobody there to help me. And so when I let go and the water took me down that creek, they guesstimated probably a good 3/4 of a mile, which doesn't seem far,
That's a
in the
long
scheme
way.
of things. But that's a long way, and I grew up wearing boots, Wranglers and boots back then, and I had a long sleeve shirt on. Everything was just heavy on me. I took off my shirt. I was trying to take off my boots. I couldn't. Doing that. That was after I kind of got to land. I should just back up a little bit. There was a point in time, and this is the closest I've ever had to a life and death experience, where I was taken underwater, and it's nighttime, so it's dark, so you really don't know which end's up, right? So I'm underwater, and all I was thinking was there is that God, don't let my mom bury another child.
Oh,
Because
Lord.
unfortunately, I had my sister when I was 13 and she was 17. She was killed in a motorcycle wreck. She was
Oh, I'm sorry.
passenger on the back of a motorcycle wreck.
Horrible.
So, but God heard my cries, because again, that was when you saw what happened at the Guadalupe River this past July 4th, it was on a minor scale, but the same kind of ferociousness of what water can do when it builds up like that and it's rushing. And I think God just plucked me out there. He brought me to the surface. I finally found some area where I could walk on some land, and I walked back up to that roadway. By then, there's emergency crews and everything that around that area they just, I said, I had a lady that was praying over me as soon as I walked back, just seeing how exhausted I was and the shape I was in. And I said, I just want to go home. They ended up taking me to the hospital. They had to cut my boots off, and my toenails were brown for about 3 weeks. And it was just it's a harrowing experience. And I also found out, too, in that little creek bed I had, there was a van that was there, and 2 people lost. There was 5 people total that lost their life, and 2 people were in that van that probably was no more than 40 or 50 yards away from me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so
And what's truly remarkable, and thank you for sharing those stories with us. And I'm so grateful to God for the blessings that we have, but I'm also grateful that He heard your cries there, and that He saved you and your wife during your tornado at your house, and that you've been able to rebuild and restructure. Kevin, it's really just a wonderful thing to get caught up with you like this, and to share your story, and to let others know that despite bad things happening, because bad things happen to everybody, and we all have to kind of overcome them.
yes,
And
sir.
but God typically doesn't give us something that He knows we can't handle. We just have to be listening. We have to be listening to God.
Have to be
And
listening, have to persevere, and just live by faith. I don't know how people can't live if they don't have faith.
I
Because
agree. I
you know,
agree totally. Well,
and
Kevin,
God's grace is something that we all should strive for,
absolutely.
and I
I
hope that.
thank you. I'm going to wrap up our interview because we've hit our 30-minute mark. I'm going to
Yes, sir.
wrap it up real quick, but hang on while I wrap it up. If you like hearing uplifting stories of overcoming challenges in life, click the like and subscribe button. Perhaps you have a story of your own to share: an accident, a sudden loss, PTSD, alcohol, drug abuse, a natural disaster, illness, and you would like to share that journey of overcoming. Please contact me at the email shown below for consideration for a future podcast interview. I want to thank everyone out there, especially my family, our military, veterans, our first responders who put their lives on the line every day. And of course, being a former teacher, I can't forget our teachers and medical professionals who who all make the world a better place one person at a time. But most of all, thank God for all the blessings in our world. We just need to make sure that we concentrate on all of those blessings. Until next time, carpe diem, seize the day.